silly Hu Tao will spook her enemies' lives away. And today I'm gonna tell you how to build her best. My name is Juice, and let's get into it. So what artifacts does our beloved funeral director desire? None other than 4-piece Crimson Witch of Flames. I'm opening with this pick because it's easily her most consistent choice across all of her teams with no strings attached. No reliance on consistent HP loss mechanics, no reliance on having energy. The 2-piece giving you some pyro damage bonus is highly welcome, and the 15% increase to vape damage is super nifty. Since you'll have about 1 stack on average from using her skill, your Hu Tao will have about 22.5% pyro bonus from this pick on average. Since it's the 2-piece is 15% plus 15% times 0.5, thanks to the 4-piece boosting the 2-piece's set effect by 50% for every skill usage you cast. It will be worse in the set's 2 main competitors in Farina teams, where damage bonus percent is abundant through buffs, but without Farina in the team, it holds its ground pretty well. 4-piece Shimenawas would be your next best bet. It's arguably actually stronger than Crimson Witch of Flames if you completely ignore Tao's burst. You're able to potentially deal even better damage with it, thanks to all that charge attack damage percent you're getting. It is indeed a fantastic choice, but it does come with its caveats. First off, if you're bad at the game, no emergency heal. Second off, no additional fanfare generation in Farina teams from self-healing. Thirdly, the set is a bit worse if you aren't good at Tao gameplay, since you want to play her well to make up for that lost burst damage. However, at least it doesn't require consistent HP loss mechanics like Hunter's does, and Tao is actually able to take full advantage of Shimenawas, unlike Crimson Witch of Flames where she can only attain 1 stack of its passive. Excellent Tao choice if you're able to make good use of it, and if you're a good enough player, it could be her most consistent best in slot choice. Do note that if you choose not to burst entirely on this set, you lose a large amount of vape nukes and the set then drastically loses value. Otherwise, if you're using Farina in your Tao team to upgrade the amount of sillies there are in one place, then 4-piece Mayonnaise Hunters becomes available to her. Tons of crit rates, plus the 2-piece boosts charge attack damage percent. It's obviously her highest performing option when it works consistently, but outside of Farina teams, it falls off hard. Sure, Tao drains some of her HP with her skill, but that's only 1 stack with a 60% uptime. Definitely great for her if you have the pieces lying around to use it in Farina teams, but in any other comp, it's a wildly inconsistent choice. 2-piece mix and match sets include 2-piece power percent, CA percent, HP percent, and EM. As for Hu Tao's main stats, simple. Go for HP percent, pyro percent, crit percent, or EM, pyro percent, crit percent. Now here's the thing, whether one is going to be better or worse for you will depend entirely on your roles, team comp, and most importantly, weapon. EM is almost always consistently better across the board in these charts, with the exception of D-Bane preferring HP in non-Farina teams thanks to the sheer amount of EM that D-Bane provides. However, this could differ depending on your personal setup. Do remember that double Hydro equals HP percent from the resonance, and if you're a high investment player of somebody like C2 Shilonen or C4 Yolan, then EM's value shoots up even higher for you. So take these with a grain of salt, as it truly is a case-by-case basis sort of thing. As for her substat priority, simple, go for this. The reason why ER percent isn't that big of a deal on Tao is because you'll probably only be bursting once every other rotation or so with her, and you'll tend to have enough energy passively. If you have Farina in the team and are bursting regularly for fanfare, even then, you don't have to concern yourself over ER much. It's more damage to invest into your DPS improving stats first, then look into ER and whatnot. The topic of Hu Tao's artifacts is certainly a debatable one. While Shimenawas and Hunters rank very highly in these lists, I urge you to keep in mind that Crimson Witch of Flames can save you a lot of hassle with how gimmick-free it is. But ultimately, all of these choices are good, and which one you will end up preferring simply depends on your particular scenario. If Hu Tao wants to hunt down customers for her business, she's gonna need the right tools to do so. Let's get right into her weapons. Staff of Homa is her most tried and true pick, plenty of crit percent, and a passive that was tailor-made for her. While this is definitely still her best in slot in non-Farina teams, in teams where your Hu Tao is being consistently healed, you won't be able to access the second half of the passive. It's still one of her best in slot choices in those teams of course, but less so. Either way, a very reliable pick on the whole. Staff of the Scarlet Sands is what you want to use if you're not using Homa and Farina teams that feature a healer. She can consistently trigger the second half of the passive, and it makes great use of Tao's EM. Just make sure that you're not overcapping on crit rate if you're using this choice next to 4-piece Hu Tao, aka the Hunter set. Great pick. A highly refined Ballad of the Fjords with its passive up is honestly quite the beast on Hu Tao. Do not underestimate the value of EM on this woman, it's seriously such a major boost to her DPS output. Speaking of which, Dragon's Bane. This thing is so solid on Tao, not only because of the truckload of EM that you get it from its main stat, but also because of that delicious passive which rewards you for vaporizing. Genuinely a fantastic budget option for this character. Don't sleep on it. Primordial Jade Winged Spear is fine on her. It doesn't give her anything exemplary, it's more so only good because it's a 5-star weapon with 5-star stats. Fine if you have it, you'll find it to be better than R5D Bane in non-Farina teams, but if Farina's around, then Page AWS becomes worse than the budget option, which is kinda yikes. If you're a complete free-to-play with no access to any gotcha options, then give White Tassel a spin. Some crit rate and NA% in the passive. It's not much, but it'll definitely hold you over until you can gain access to a better weapon option for her. I prefer this over Black Tassel as our complete budget option personally, because you gain valuable crit stats from this. Here's to hoping that you haven't accidentally recycled yours. While Tao's free-to-play options might look rough, don't worry. She will absolutely still clear with them. I would say that since Staff of Homa is on banners of Floating Dreams, there is no better time to pick it up. Homa always tends to have good weapon banners after all. Waiting for Scarlet Sands is also a valid choice. Both will serve you wonderfully. If I didn't discuss your personal favorite Tao choice, then have a look here now to see where it ranks. Who's gonna join our funny funeral director in scouting out more clients? Well, Hu Tao has two main double hydro cores, the Farina one and the traditional one. I'll go over all of her Farina options first, then talk about her older teams afterwards. First off, the recent release of Shilonen has made for a fantastic buff in Tao Farina teams. She can't proc Pyro Cinder City, but because of how a Res Shred works, she can provide a full 36% Res Shred to Tao's personal damage if you've got the DJ skill fully maxed out. Having that on top of Fanfare Synergy is such an upgrade from Zhongli's 20% Shred without Fanfare Synergy until C6. If you get Shilonen C2, then you'll be in literal HP percent heaven. While that's only buffing your Farina and Yelan, that's still a pretty big increase to your team's overall DPS. Even if your Tao is C0, the cat's officially the new best final slot in furry Tao teams, thanks to how her Res Shred works. Otherwise, if you don't want to put up with nonsensical jump cancelling being a massive DPS loss in this day and age, then Xian Yun Plunge is the way to go. She allows you to weave plunges into your Tao's combos, which makes C0 feel so much more smooth to play. You still have to jump cancel, but jumping won't be a DPS loss anymore, not to mention how Tao is the strongest Pyro Plunge DPS with enough investment. Vertical for this team is pretty good too, with C2 Xian Yun being quite a delicious upgrade. She's also able to offer some other buffs through 4P Song of Days Past, or even 4VV if you want to make the Hydra units contribute more damage. For sure a supreme Tao team choice, and in my opinion, the comfiest way to go for C0 Tao players. Jean works as a replacement healer over Xian Yun, but do note that losing the plunge enabling kind of defeats the whole purpose here. Bennett is a strong final slot too, as Tao is able to enjoy his attack to a small degree. Yes, he's a single character healer, but if you swap through all of your teammates enough, then you should be fine in terms of fanfare and survivability. His C6 offering some extra pyro percent is also pretty neat, but to be honest, with Farina around, that's more of a bonus than anything else. Excellent final option. To group up all of these options in one place, example teams include Tao, Farina, Yelan, Shilonen, Hu, Farina, Yelan, Xian Yun, Funeral Woman, Hydro Archon, The Spy, Jean, Silly Pants, Farina, Yelan, Bennett. Then onto traditional Tao teams. Xingqiu Yelan Flex is the most common old Tao archetype. Those two cover for each other's weaknesses while allowing Tao to vape every single hit without fail. Despite this team archetype being pretty old, it's still able to crush content quite comfortably. Zhongli is the most common final slot here as it allows for comfier gameplay while also adding a 20% universal Red Shred buff to the team. Otherwise, if you're a good enough player, you can ditch the Geo Archon for Kazuha or Sucrose instead for 4VV to help out the Hydros. Plus damage bonus percent in Kazu's case, and EM in Sucrose's case. Double Geo Tao with Albedo is literally the most fossil team ever. I really don't recommend it over Xingqiu Yelan Tao, but if you're a huge Albedo fan and seriously want to use him somewhere, then this comp will be your best bet. After all, his burst EM share is pretty nifty. Yes, Chiori works in place of him too thanks to Zhongli having a Geo construct. You'll lose the EM share then though. Overvape is a pretty nifty team for her if you want to save Xingqiu for another half. Essentially, the Electro app helps sustain Hydro up on the enemies, allowing Tao to consistently vape every time even when using a Hydro unit that offers less elemental application. It's still pretty good in my opinion. Nice way to be teammate efficient with your Tao teams. Funirational is also a funky way to force some additional damage and AoE into your Tao teams. While it's a bit of an impractical AoE team by today's standards, it certainly works if you want to play Hu Tao specifically. Xingqiu and Yelan both apply enough Hydra for the two Pyro girls to vape consistently. While it's not the strongest team ever anymore, I really loved playing it back in the day, so I felt like it warranted a little mention. Example teams include Tao, Xingqiu, Yelan, Zhongli, Kazuha, or Sucrose. Hu Shengqiu Albedo Rex Lapis, Yippee Yalon Bennett Fischl, Yahoo Yalon Shengqiu Shangling, Yippee Yahoo Yalon Bennett Kazuha. You get the idea. Yet how does our funny funeral director work? Well, her normal attacks deal 6 simple physical strikes. Okay, I mean, I will say that 6 is a longer string than most, if not the longest string in the game, alongside Arlecchino's. As for her skill, she'll consume a portion of her HP and increase her attack based on her max HP. She'll gain some interruption res too, and all of her normal attacks and charge attacks will become pyro-infused. Plus, when she hits enemies with her charge attack, she will apply a Blood Blossom onto them. That's fun to say. Anyways, the Blood Blossom will deal pyro skill damage to enemies once every few seconds. This isn't a major part of her damage output, so it's not that important. As for Tao's burst, she'll throw around the ghost, which deals AoE pyro damage that also heals her. The more enemies you hit, the more she heals, and that stacks up to 5 enemies. If you hit enemies with her ghost when she's below 50% HP, both the ability's damage and healing will be increased. As for her Ascension passives, simple. Hu Tao's A1 will give all of her allies 12% more crit rate when her skill state ends. It's a shame that this doesn't apply to her, but it's a cool bonus for double Hydra teams where she isn't the only main contributor to the team's overall DPS output. Her A4 will provide her with 33% pyro damage bonus when she's below 50% HP. To be honest, because of Arena teams and the fact that damage bonus percent isn't all that rare anymore, her A4 isn't as important as it used to be. Still cool to proc if you're able to, of course. As for talent priorities, simple, go for this. Make sure to level her normals first, because much like Xiao's plunges, her skill buffs the normals and charge attacks. The scalings aren't in the skill, rather the skill provides both the buffs and infusion. Just don't make the mistake of leveling her skill first, otherwise her skill is definitely worth leveling. And her burst, while it is her lowest priority ability, especially if you're a Hu Tao main, definitely don't fully neglect it and give it some love too. Wanna pay for Hu Tao's funeral services? Then let's talk Constellations. This is one of the most well-known constellations in all of Genshin Impact. We all know why this is good. Yes, it remains as a massive quality of life and damage increase no matter the Tao team. Even so, characters such as Xian Yun have made the C0 lifestyle a little easier. Even so, if you can get this con, go for it. The comfort it provides the characters unparalleled. This is an okay con, it makes her Blood Blossom damage matter a little more, but it's still nothing to write home about in comparison to your nutty charge attacks. Also, allowing her ult to apply Blood Blossoms is neat, a decent con. Unfortunately, Genshin only started allowing characters to have +3 normal attack constellations way after Hu Tao came out, so the next best thing is a +3 to her skill, which yes, is pretty good. This provides more team-wide crit rate, now allowing Tao to give everyone 24% total if stacked with her other ability. Not a wild con to be honest, especially for a C4, but hey, it's better than nothing. I wouldn't go out of your way to get this in my opinion. A +3 to your burst nuke isn't half bad at all. I'd avoid Shimenawas in favor of Hunters or Crimson Witch of Flames at this stage. Bro, this C6 is awful. Clearly they didn't plan ahead. Below 25% HP in this Farina Tao day and age? Listen, it's a C6, you'll manage to clear with it. But holy guacamole, it is genuinely one of the most awful C6s if we're talking in terms of the whale meta here. It's actually hilarious how her most well-known speedrun strat, using a C4 Ayaka to support Tao's burst nuke, does not get buffed by any con except for allowing you to run a screenshot build with this C6. Genuinely, I think the only other C6 worse than this would be Albedo's or something. Even if Tao is your favorite waifu, please just get Farina or Xilonen cons instead. Tao's early vertical investment is fire, then it falls off a cliff the further you go. Get C1 first, the quality of life improvement is wild. Then go for either Staff of Homa or Staff of the Scarlet Sands, depends on your preferred setup and build. From there, I'm begging you to get Farina, Xilonen, or Xian Yun cons instead. It feels like they got a Hu Tao hater to design her C2 to 6, especially that diabolically awful C6. Hu Tao used to be one of my favorite characters. Considering that I used to main her a very long time ago to quite the dedicated extent, I'd like to believe that I have a very thorough understanding of the unit. While Linny fried Tao the moment he released with Arlecchino only sealing the funeral director's grave, ironically enough, I still believe she qualifies as a high A-tier DPS. You'll definitely still get plenty of mileage out of this wonderful pyro DPSing option. Hopefully this video was able to get your Hu Tao digging the graves of her enemies. This has been Juice, signing out, and even if she isn't an S-tier DPS anymore, she's certainly S-tier in this silly department.